The so-called civilized people call it a gun-free zone. Mass murderers call it a shooting gallery. Good evening once again, everybody. This is Hell's Unicorn, and since everybody is talking about this horrible mass shooting in Colorado, I figured it's time to give my 2 cents worth. After all, even though there are plenty more people than that being killed overseas right now in various conflicts, which we have not been given much of a reason for continuing, this will take precedence because it gives the media an opportunity to do two things. Continue to be lazy while also talking about something other than Mr. Sandusky's sexual exploits. So, I have had certain people I know who are very pro-gun control chewing my ears off, telling me that this means that we need to limit gun ownership even more and pass even stricter laws. Now you see, little problem with this here, and the problem is that Aurora, Colorado has some pretty strong gun control laws, to be exact, and most of the other places where gun violence statistics are real high, you have extremely strong gun control laws. I'll give you a prime example. I spoke to somebody who lives in Philadelphia who said, we need stronger gun control. My friend was shot within 8 feet of me just a couple of years ago, and I'm thinking to myself, you know something, you live in Philadelphia, it's actually not legal to carry most kinds of guns in Philadelphia, but that didn't stop the person that shot your friend, did you? I've actually driven through Kensington a couple times. Every time I did it, it was by accident, just so you know, and it is not uncommon to hear automatic gunfire whenever you're within a couple of blocks of that area of Philadelphia. And believe me when I tell you, none of those guns that are being fired have been procured legally. That I promise you. But nevertheless, there are people calling for more gun control because of this, and even more still saying that we need to outlaw guns altogether. I simply submit to those of you that are in that extreme camp the following. In the year 2009, 14 million guns were purchased in this country. That's more than 21 of the world's standing armies. And I actually have a link in the description that shows you these statistics. The combined militaries of China, the United States, India, North Korea, Russia, Pakistan, going on down the line, all of these massive militaries, you put them all together, you have less soldiers than there were guns bought in this country. You think it's going to be possible to clear every single gun out of this country? You'd better think again. Our own military is outgunned here, and I can guarantee you that there is going to be plenty in that massive sum of people that are not going to give their guns up willingly. And I say they don't have to. On the other hand, I have heard other people argue that we need more guns out there in order to prevent this stuff, to which I say you're only half right. It's not enough to have more guns out there. What is needed is more people that actually know how to use them. And so I'm submitting a little proposal in reaction to this event, since everybody's still very shook up about it, mostly because the media is going to be talking and talking and talking about it for the next few weeks. That's why I currently have my television turned off and only plan to turn it on when it comes time to fire up my PS3. Since gun ownership is such a pervasive thing in this country, I submit to you the following. I submit to all of you that we should take the Swiss approach to this. Gun ownership should not only be a right, it should be a mandatory requirement for your ability to vote in this country, and I would argue to go so far as to live in this country. I think 14 million plus guns being purchased in this country is not enough. I think we need several tens of millions more, as many as there are responsible people over the age of 15 that are capable of handling them. I think if you're old enough to be in driver's ed, you're old enough how to learn to use a gun. Back in the good old days, you learned to fire a gun even younger still. And perhaps you'd probably have fewer household accidents if children were also taught, one, how to use a gun, and number two, how to respect what it can do. And this would also result in maybe a little bit of a different approach to how we teach kids about a number of different things, and particular the difference between reality and fantasy when it comes to video games in which guns are employed and so on and so forth. But I add this caveat with the compulsory gun ownership idea. Everybody is required to take marksmanship courses and must pass these courses as part of their public education requirements. We have a mandatory public school system. We might as well teach people how to do something that's actually useful. I guarantee you, with over 100 million people in this country willing and able to use a gun, you will see a massive drop in crime. And with a greater air marshal presence on flights in and out of this country, you will see less potential for terrorist attacks, either on airplanes or using airplanes. And we can also do away with this, all the sexual assault that goes on in security by TSA agents in the process. I further assert that anybody who supports limiting gun ownership should be required to own not one, but 2 guns, and should be required to take twice as much training. It's not enough to get all of these guns out into the public and have them being used responsibly, just as people learn how to responsibly use a hammer or a chainsaw or some other tool that actually has a particular use. I assert that anybody who is too weak-kneed to handle it needs remedial attention, so to speak. I think it's time we got over this stupid idea of eliminating guns from the planet. It's not going to happen. People who think that we can do this, I would argue, are more dangerous than the criminals running around with the illegal guns. Also, if the government is requiring gun ownership, universal gun ownership, it has put a check on itself voluntarily, and it has also eliminated the need for compulsory registration of weapons. Because if the government is allowing you to own the gun for use of your own protection, the risk of having it confiscated is taken down a bit by the fact that everybody else owns one as well. I think it's time that we take an entirely different approach, not just to gun ownership, but to our entire mentality regarding government, policing of powers, so to speak, and even our military. I would argue that if we are going to have a true defense force, like we have a so-called Department of Defense, let's actually have some defenders here in this country rather than spread out all over the place in the Middle East shooting random people. But anyway, for those of you who think my idea is a little crazy, feel free to opine in the comments section. I'm going to let this be a little bit more of a free-for-all, and I'm not just going to delete comments, even if there's profanity attached to them on this one. I want a good, loud, rigorous debate, and I want people to get their full ideas out there. Because, frankly, the discussion that will be had on here will be much more constructive than the nonsense that's being spoken on this subject by the media. Until next time, with prudence to myself and benevolence to all of you, good evening.